The Verstappen-Russell rivalry. It has become mainstream after the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. I'll give you a brief recap of what happened. So, 2024 Qatar Grand Prix happens, the Lusail International Circuit. Max Verstappen sets the fastest time in qualifying, and George Russell sets the second fastest time, a couple of hundreds behind Verstappen. No big deal, right? But then George Russell goes to the stewards and convinces them that Verstappen has impeded him during his preparation lap, which is a very weird thing. And we all saw the footage. It's publicly available on the F1 YouTube channel. It's not dangerous driving. Verstappen didn't do it deliberately. He did not impede George Russell in any type of way based on what I see, based on my years and years of watching Formula One. But somehow, George Russell managed to convince the stewards that he was a couple of hundreds behind Verstappen in the final Q3 run because Verstappen fucked up his preparation lap. And the stewards bought it. They gave Max Verstappen a one place grid penalty for the main race, and the starting grid was George Russell on pole and Max Verstappen P2. So that was like the beginning of the mainstreamification of the Verstappen Russell rivalry. And this is not the first time in which George Russell has acted violently, not like violently, but demonstrated hostility against Max Verstappen. In the 2023 Azerbaijan Grand Prix sprint race, George Russell took a bit of sideboard from Max Verstappen's Red Bull. And I mean, they were going into a corner, it was tight. Russell could have given Verstappen a little bit more room, arguably, and then it didn't happen, which allowed Sergio Perez to win the sprint race easily. So the broader question is, why does the British driver hate the Dutch world champion? And the reason is very simple. Every time George Russell has achieved anything of significance in his Formula One career, Max Verstappen either tries to ruin it or outdoes him in such a big way that all of the attention is on him and not on George Russell. And because of this, George Russell has a lot of hatred fostered in his heart. And this is not personal. Verstappen is not doing any of this personally, or maybe he is. But he is just effortlessly stealing the thunder from George Russell in what is supposed to be his special days in his F1 career. Let's start by looking at some evidence, because I'm not just going to sit here and make these bold claims and not provide you any evidence. That'll be just talking out of my ass. That's something that Mohammed bin Sulayem does. The 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix. George Russell secured the win, his first ever Formula One victory. However, we were all occupied because Verstappen and Hamilton collided. Most of the discussions, at least between the fans, I mean, obviously Mercedes had the fastest car in that race weekend, so it is kind of unsurprising that they took the victory. But we were all talking about the collision between Lewis and Max. And also, a little bit of discussion was about the surprising performance of the Mercedes. So that was the first win. Verstappen kind of ruined it by taking some of the attention out of it by colliding with his teammate. George Russell's second career victory came in the 2024 Austrian Grand Prix. In this race also, Max Verstappen collided with Lando Norris, who was the title contender. Not really a title contender, but like mathematically, Lando Norris was the title contender in the 2024 season. And they had a collision which allowed Russell to go ahead and secure the win. We all have seen the cool down room video in which Sainz, Piastri, and Russell are laughing by looking at the collision on TV. But again, we were mostly talking about who is right, who is wrong. The media was primarily asking questions to Lando and Max about how they're going to approach the future wheel to wheel racing scenarios. Yeah, there was a little bit of pat on the back for George Russell, as per, but a lot of the discussion among the Formula One fans was between was about the collision between Lando and Max and how Max continued, finishing P6, and how Lando quit like a bitch. The third win in George Russell's Formula One career came in the 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix. And as you all know, that's the same venue where Max Verstappen wrapped up his fourth world title. So, as a consequence of that, nobody really gave a shit about George Russell's drive. And George Russell actually put in a very clean weekend. The car showed pace, obviously, otherwise, he wouldn't have won. The car was fast. Lewis Hamilton fucked up in Q3 because he was washed out, which allowed Russell to go and secure the pole position. And then he defended hard against a charging Charles Leclerc in the initial part of the race, which was commendable to see. He maintained the pace, he led the pack well, he managed the tires well, and he secured the victory. Great drive. But people were actually focused on Max Verstappen, who won his fourth world title, consecutive fourth world title, and people are celebrating about it. And then he also did an exclusive interview with Lawrence Barretto where he was drunk and he talked about some good things in life. This just stole away all of the attention from George Russell's great drive in the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Now, it's not just the victories that Max Verstappen ruined of George Russell. It's also the moments in which Russell was about to win, but he didn't, and somehow it is connected to Max Verstappen. You know what I mean? So in the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix, Sergio Perez's first ever Formula One victory, phenomenal drive. He went from last to first. That was a race that Russell could have won. He had pace, he adapted to the car well, he was handling the pressure well, he was on the charge, he was hungry, he could have won the race. Verstappen retired on lap 1, so there was no way Verstappen could have taken wind out of his sail. But his future teammate wins the race. And Sergio Perez's victory, like the Checo's victory, that actually took the attention or captured the attention of the decision makers in Milton Keynes, and they offered him a seat for the upcoming season and beyond. So even in 2020 Sakir, where he could have won and Verstappen retired from the race, for some reason, Verstappen's yet to be teammate outdoes George Russell and, manages to steal his thunder. I mean, he was a crying mess after the race. We got some good memes out of it. But again, there is the Verstappen connection. Another instance in which Russell actually won, but it didn't count as a win, was the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix. George Russell pulls off a one-stop strategy, fence off of a charging Lewis Hamilton on fresher tires, and behind him is also Oscar Piastri, who is also fast. Great victory. Max Verstappen is like P5 or P6 at this point, so he's not going to steal your thunder. He didn't have any big moments in the race. I'm talking about Verstappen. He didn't crash with anybody. He didn't do any, huge shenanigans. But Russell gets disqualified. So even when, what I mean? Like, even when Max Verstappen is not in a position where he can steal the thunder of George Russell, there is something happens, and guess who inherits the win? Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen nemesis, his older rival. So everything, like whenever something goes wrong in Russell's career, or even if something goes right in Russell's career, he's always gonna be in the shadow of Max Verstappen. Another instance in which Russell could have won, apart from Sakir 2020 and 2024 Belgian GP, was the 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix. Now, hear me out, okay? I know that Verstappen had pace throughout the weekend and he is great in rain and all that type of stuff, but hear me out. Max Verstappen has magical powers, like the shaman magical powers from the indigenous tribes that live in the Brazilian rainforest. And not a lot of people know this, but Max is in a relationship with a woman named Kelly Piquet, and get this, she's from Brazil. Right? And they're close. They're having a kid together, like they're having a baby together. So Max Verstappen has Brazilian connection. So first, Verstappen uses his magical powers to intensify the rain. And this affected Russell more than anybody because Russell was out there in front and he was pushing. Behind him is Lando Norris, who doesn't know how to drive on the first lap. But after that, I mean, the McLaren is a faster car, right? So he is chasing Russell. So Russell has to push. He is on worn tires. Max Verstappen understands this and he uses his shaman magic to intensify the rain. Not intensify, I don't know if that's a real word, but the rain starts to hit hard, is what I'm going to say. And then George Russell is like, you know what? They're going to red flag it. So let's just stay on the track. Let's just hold track position because overtaking is a fucking nightmare. Let's not go to the pits for new tires, even though my grip levels are deteriorating. Let's just stay on track. Let's just tolerate this intense rain. When it passes, I'm still gonna have position. If they red flag the session, then I'm gonna get a free pit stop. Right? That was George Russell's strategy. And then Max Verstappen ups the ante by incepting a thought in the mind of Marcus Dudley, who is George Russell's race engineer. And then he puts the pressure on Russell to go and pit. This is like some 7D chess type of thing that I'm talking about. Like, I'm not even kidding at this point. So the rain is falling hard. Russell's grip levels are low. Marcus Dudley is insisting Russell to come and pit. Russell falls. And immediately after that, Colapinto crashes. Colapinto crashed into the walls because of Max Verstappen as well, because, again, he used his shaman magic power once again. In the Mexican Grand Prix, the race before the Brazilian Grand Prix, Franco Colapinto had a crash, not a crash, but like a touch, like a small collision with Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson is Max Verstappen's upcoming teammate. In order to avenge the loss or the trauma that his future teammate endured in Mexico, Verstappen avenged him by using his summon magical superpowers to crash Colapinto into the wall, which also brought out the red flag, enabling him to get a free pit stop, fucking over George Russell once again. So again, even when in situations where it appears as if Russell is gonna win, somehow there's Max Verstappen somewhere. He's pulling the strings. He's using supernatural powers. He's doing these rituals deep in the Brazilian rainforest. The things that Alex Pereira, the UFC light heavyweight champion, does before fighting against Yuri Prohaska and knocking him twice. Those type of things is done by Max Verstappen. And I'm gonna speed run through George Russell's podium. So basically, George Russell has 15 podiums. 3 of them are wins. We talked about the wins. Out of the remaining 12, in 10 of them, Max Verstappen wins the race. So he is obviously the man. The remaining 2 are the 2022 Australian Grand Prix and the 2024 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The 2022 Australian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen retires for the first time in 2 years. People talk about that for a while. I mean, his car's brakes, I think, just exploded. So people definitely talked about that. Took away a little bit of wind out of George Russell's sail, even though he stepped on the podium. The only F1 career milestone that Verstappen did not manage to ruin for George Russell was the 2024 Azerbaijan GP podium. That's the only thing. So congratulations to George Russell for at least saving that, but he couldn't save anything else. All of this gave reason to Russell to hate him, to have spite in his heart against the Dutch world champion. All of this makes the 2025 season very interesting because we will see how George Russell uses his power of diplomacy and discussion and debate and, brainwashing, I guess, because George Russell has the best colonizer genes. So he is definitely capable of using words to his advantage and making him look like the victim. So he can definitely do that and get Max Verstappen penalties. With the swear bans and Ben Sulayem acting like a dictator, all of that thing will be interesting. But obviously, in terms of racecraft, in terms of the Brazilian shaman magic, no one is close to Max Verstappen because he has the Brazilian connection. Kelly Piquet is from Brazil. They're having a baby together. That's big. I don't know if you guys know this, okay? So we will see how it pans out in the 2025 season. It'll be fun if these guys collide once in a while. We will see who puts the blame on who. We will see if this escalates to an off track physical confrontation like it happened with Verstappen and Ocon in Brazil. I think it was 2019. That'll be awesome to see. In 2025, Mercedes will have a good car because they are in like the upward trajectory. Red Bull, not that much. Since the departure of Adrian Newey, they have been, using DIY techniques to improve their car because the current engineers think that F1 cars are made up of fucking Legos. All of that increases the probability of wheel to wheel battles between Russell and Verstappen. And based on the amount of hatred that Russell has in his heart and the kind of troll that Max Verstappen is, all of that makes it interesting for the upcoming seasons. We'll see what happens. So, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.